Now I am going to tackle a very difficult subject, which perhaps I shouldn't tackle, but I think at least it will be a good beginning to an insight into these mysterious matters. And what I intend to tackle is how did the strange condition or conditions which exist in the human being and which are expected at some point in the aeons to be undergo an enlightenment and a liberation. This is, also, in fact, I'll depend on you, find out when the full moon is. It's very close to it now. And the full moon, the first full moon of May, if there is only one, is the festival of Vesak in all of Buddhism, which is the joint commemoration of the birth, the enlightenment, and the death of Gautama Buddha. So as long as we can get as close to the full moon, then we have Madame Blavatsky's death anniversary is also this month, which was on the 6th. So this is quite a portentous month in many respects. It doesn't really have much to do with this evening's subject, except tangentially. Now, it has occurred to me since the beginning of my theosophical career, such as it may be, that the not frequently mentioned, but probably still very important objective of Madame Blavatsky's work, and for that matter of the entire theosophical movement, ever since the founding of the movement in 1875, had to do with an interior elevation, enlightenment, transformation, whatever word we want to use, of those who avail themselves of that material. And I have been convinced for many, many years that the objective of the theosophical movement was to a lesser degree teaching, and to a greater degree the acquisition, no doubt step by step, of a process of transformation, enlightenment, whatever you wish to call it. And as I have indicated before, the discoveries and publications of the last, I would say, 20 years or so, have justified this contention, because writings of H.P. Blavatsky primarily have been discovered, correspondences, letters of H.P. Blavatsky to important people, especially her relatives in Russia, have been discovered, and they all indicate that there was something in her mission to the world which probably until this time has not been particularly approached or understood, particularly by her disciples. Maybe by some other people, but not by her disciples. And that this was, to repeat it maybe again to a certain extent, that this was the proclamation and the contention that the human being has a mysterious and yet very extremely important future. And that is a future that needs to be understood and needs to be brought into practice and done something with. And that this future, this predictive element concerning the human race, is not contained in her, except very, very scantily here or there in her secret doctrine, but that it is contained in some of her more esoteric writings that have been, for the most part, found in recent years, and among them is the Secret Doctrine Digest and the esoteric writings of H.P. Blavatsky, both of these edited by Michael Gomes. And if Michael Gomes is coming closer and closer to us. Now we know that he will be here in July in Vancouver at the meeting that we will hold, and which is already has more than 400 enrolled members, which is quite encouraging, although one always wonders whether more people are more useful than fewer people. But in any event, he will be there, and then maybe we can go up to him and kneel before him and beg him to please come to Los Angeles. This is the great historian of the theosophical movement and an absolutely wonderful guy. In addition to that. So by hook or by crook, we are going to get him to come here. And maybe that would be one place where we could catch him. In any event, he is the one who has discovered the overwhelming majority of these writings, which can be justly called secret writings. Now, that introduction, which we have used before in other ways, needs to be brought into this evening's topic, in the sense that in these esoteric writings of H.P. Blavatsky, there are obviously many, many statements that she makes about her mission, about her founding of the theosophical movement and various related matters. And so we need to keep in mind that by her own declaration, Blavatsky was very well aware that her work was not finished. And I don't want to keep flagellating you with this idea, but it's important to keep in mind and to put that into very ordinary parameters. Her work really can be divided into two great divisions. Number one is what she herself came to identify as a work for the general public, as also might be called an exoteric work. And believe it or not, this is the secret doctrine. And she stated, and we have her word for it, that the secret doctrine was written for the general public, and that she had something else that she was holding on to until it was ready to be published, and that would be of a more esoteric nature and would place the rest of her work into a different context. Now, what we have here to make it very brief, because we have to look at some mysterious and esoteric matters here in this context, was the fact that how should we put it? That the secret doctrine indicates, and they use the term to my occasional chagrin, of evolution, of the development of the human race to a higher, a more spiritual and a more transcendental level, and then it stopped. But how that level might be reached, where it might lead, what are its goals, and so forth, this was not present. And Blavatsky stated herself that she was waiting for the time when her secret doctrine was published and was known by the general public, and then she would reveal more of that. Well, as it happens, the old, how do you call it, the Psy man who comes and cuts off the heads, death, namely, came her way and took her away much too early for her and for our own good. But as time happens, she has alluded adequately and given elusive references to what she was after and what really her secret doctrine and other writings, because she contributed to, she was writing all the time. She had a journal called The Theosophist, which until recent times was still published in Adyar. I don't know whether it still is, but there she was the she was the editor of that. Many other things, she wrote some smaller books. In any event, there was something toward which she was striving and working, and which did not come to pass, which is something that could easily happen to any of us, because we have all kinds of plans, we have all kinds of ideas, and do we know whether these will be realized, or whether they will go with us to on other more mysterious and more ethereal realm? For which reason, if we are thus inclined, it's a good idea to have some documentation of our ideals, of what we have striven for in this lifetime. Because if we don't have some reasonably understandable notations of that sort, then how will people ever know? So this is really an important issue. In any event, we do have some significant hints now which allow us, if we so wish and have the ability, to put together a certain image about Blavatsky's destiny, of Blavatsky's writings which did not come to pass, of what she was still trying to tell us. And in a very simple manner, and perhaps some people would say an overly simplified manner, I can give you a little overview of what that is. Now, this overview is constructed from her, from the conclusions to be drawn from her previously unpublished writings, and interpretations of these that we can construe. So, in other words, I can now also, after all these years of fighting against the concept of evolution, which I detest, I really detest, I haven't evolved, I have come. And I think that is also true of a lot of others. It's an unfortunate adaptation of the Darwinian image, which of course was the only one that was available. And it does have a certain relationship to what Blavatsky was really driving at. Now let's see what this consists of. It consists of the fact that there is a development, difficult to explain it otherwise, except perhaps more accurate would be, I think I mentioned that before, more accurate than that would be a transformational development rather than a Darwinian evolutionist development, which I think has a considerable esoteric meaning and overtones, and that is the one that should have been cultivated, but unfortunately the concept of evolution, or as the preachers on Sunday evening like to call it, evolution, was present and came to be put in the various books, but it is woefully inadequate to even approach rather than define what Blavatsky was really aiming at. Now I got to go back to the very beginning of the secret doctrine and so, and hope that this is not going to be too elementary or too boring to you, but let us say the image is that before anything began, there was something to continue. It's probably not a very good way to express it, but it's the best one that I have at the present time. And particularly when we illuminate that in light of the Gnostic scriptures, which after all were known to and available and greatly extolled by H.P. Blavatsky. She wrote over 600 pages about Gnosticism. And they have been selected from her various writings by a Dutch professor, theosophical professor, and placed into a volume by itself. It's a huge volume. And so we can see that the secret, the cosmology, the cosmoconception of the secret doctrine embodies the understanding that the eternal parent wrapped in her ever-invisible robes had slumbered once again for 7 eternities. That's how it starts, and then it goes on. In other words, there is a mysterious, utterly transcendental and yet divine reality, out of which the relative unreality wherein we live and which to a greater extent we are, came forth. And so as things have come forth from that, that's where the issues begin. In a Gnostic interpretation, we would find that this ultimate reality then undergoes various changes. And one of these is that, well, how should I put it? Some difficulties arise. So while from the eternal reality a developing, a transforming partial reality had come forth. The manner of this coming forth and the manner of its subsequent development are really the key to what might be called the esoteric, the esoteric view, the esoteric cosmology, the esoteric cosmoconception, which is already present in the secret doctrine, but not powerfully enough present and not entirely clear. Now, what do we mean there? For instance, I was bothered, I'm always bothered by something. It's just Hungarian nature. We are unhappy people who are always bothered by something. But in any event, I was bothered by various and some of the most beautiful philosophical passages that I came across in the various literature, and I have not come to terms with them until just very, very recently. For instance, Dr. Annie Besant wrote a beautiful little verse which has been used as an invocation and a sort of a blessing ever since in the society, which runs as follows. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom, O hidden light shining in every creature, O hidden love embracing all in oneness, may each who feels himself as one with thee know he is therefore one with every other. And that's probably one of the most lyrically beautiful statements sort of arising out of theosophical milieu that I have found. And yet, ever since I first read it in one of Dr. Besant's books, I was bothered by it. And my bother has somewhat subsided recently, in the sense that, what is this hidden life vibrant in every atom? Is it the atomic energy with the help of which we do Hiroshimas and things like that? Is it something else? What is it? Now, I'll tell you what I think it is. That doesn't mean it's true, but by now I am fairly convinced that something of this sort is true. When the eternal parent, wrapped in her ever invisible robes, has slumbered again for 7 eternities and then begins to come forth, and comes forth in what has been called in scholarship emanations. Emanation is not creation. Creation is there is old Jehovah, big beautiful beard. He absolutely would have one, much bigger than mine, and he makes. He is a maker. He's a demiurgos, who is an architect, a fashioner of things. And when he does that, then he brings forth a number of, how should we call it, potentialities of life. And they are, out of these develop the living beings, whether visible or invisible, in the forthcoming ages, in the forthcoming aeons. But the one that we may wish to take particularly some attention to at this point is that none of the creatures that are emanated, with the exception of one, have the capacity of a smooth and wonderful and ultimately productive reunion with the original source. Now, I know this is big heresy. A lot of theosophists would consider it a heresy, a lot of others would. But in my Gnostic point of view, I think it is not. In other words, various forms of life have come from, and to be sort of very nonchalant about it. Some became dogs, and some became cats, and some became snakes, and then we can go on and on, and some became dolphins, one thing or the other. You know what? These lives do not, as they are, without further transformations, these lives are not capable of returning to the source. They have been made, they are there, they do all kinds of valuable things. I mean, what a terrible thing this would be if we didn't have any dogs. It really would be terrible. Ever since I was a tiny child, I was with dogs, and I think they've done me a great deal of good. But let us say there is something else. There is eventually in some of her writings that are just, her writings about alchemy and so forth, Blavatsky admitted that there is well, how to put it, there is a life which is more than ordinary life. A life above all lives. And nowadays, probably the closest term that we may apply to it is consciousness. Consciousness. And so there is an other life, there is a consciousness. And this other life is destined to rise out of the darkness of materiality and all the what am I trying to say? All the physiological ways in which life is masked, and become a totally free agent capable to return to its source. And where is that strange thing? Well, I think it is mainly, as far as we can discover it now, and by the study of various spiritual systems, it is now here in the human being. You can call it life, but it is not a biological life. It is a different kind of life. It is a transcendental life. It is a life of the spirit. It is the life that has the capacity to so transform itself alchemically that after a certain period of time and work, it becomes at one with its origin. This is the sort of thing to what Jesus Christ says in the New Testament, I and the Father are one. He didn't say, I am going to develop, I am going to what did we say? I'm going to evolve in a Darwinian sense before I become a god. No, it says, I and the Father are one. Now, who can say that? Somebody can say that with veracity. Maybe other people can say it mendaciously, I don't know, but can say it with reality, who has come to the realization of that union of his or her consciousness with the ultimate source, with the divine source, with transcendence itself. And this is obviously takes a great deal. It takes a great deal of time. It takes a great deal of doing, and accepting, and eventually, this is where the more highly, once again, I will not say the other word, but the more highly transformed, the more highly developed, the alchemically completed human souls have within them that life. Blavatsky calls it the essence, the essence. And this essence allows you to transform further and further, and eventually come back to what Jesus called the Father's home, in which there are many mansions. But it takes a lot of change, it takes a lot of development, it takes not just a biological evolutionary process. That has always been my big objection to evolution. How can a process like evolution take you beyond itself, beyond the evolving things? No, there has to be something else. There has to be a transformation. You have to become completely different from what you were before. And that completely different is the essence. The essence that has been inside of you since the beginning, and that is still there, that calls out now and then. All right, are we transforming body? Come on, why am I sitting here and not getting anywhere? Of course that is a little bit of a jocular statement, but it's something of that sort. It is an essence. Why did she use the word essence? Well, we don't know, but I have a guess. Because it is essentially different from all the rest. So there is something inside of us. And perhaps to a smaller and undeveloped degree, an alchemically not yet transformed degree in many other places, among many other animals and plants and so forth, but in us right now. And if we deal with it, if we continue to work on that transformation, that alchemical transformation, that essential change, which is the essence changes, essence change, then we are on the way home. Not for any other reason, not for 10,000 million computers, not for any technology, because this is not technology. If you wanted to call it something, this is transcendental technology. This is more than technology. This is what transcends everything. And to what does transcend mean? It's to go beyond. So when you go beyond the physical, you go beyond the emotional, You go beyond the intellectual. You go beyond the intuitive. And there you are all of a sudden in a condition in which that essence is stimulated. Perhaps the stimuli coming to that essence may take centuries and maybe take millennia. I would say, as when we look at history, and I've always been a great lover of history, then you can see times in history when sort of a different, a really transcendental, a deific element, boom, just pops out and is active. For instance, the Renaissance period was one of these. The alchemists at different historical periods were also along that line. So the human essence can come to a point when it awakens, and then it's got to go its own way further, and to facilitate that going the greater way, that to facilitate that transformation, people like Blavatsky came into the world and have brought forth, look, if you do this, if you look at your own transformation, if you do your own alchemy and so forth, then something very unusual may happen. Namely, you are going to be transformed. You are not going to be the same that you have been before, but you have become something new. And that something new is, if not exactly already your permanent self, but at least something very, very close to it. And to put it in extremely simple terms, and for that reason probably oversimplifying it somewhat, it is my considered view that that is what we are here for. We are not here to reform the world. We are not here to do this or to do that. We are here to undergo an alchemical transformation which in turn will facilitate the transformative movement towards something greater of everyone else. But we are not here to change everyone else. Vasily Lenin and people like that were the ones who wanted to change everyone else. And what did they change it to? They changed the people into slaves. They changed the people into inhabitants of the Gulag. So, that's not what it is. What happens is that a transformative change which changes us into something that only in a very mysterious potential way was present before. I recommend to you, and I have it somewhere, some of my best books are the ones that disappear the quickest. I don't know why, because probably other people think that they are good books too. But, one of them, there is a, and I have reproductions of it that are quite good. So before we completely say goodbye to the subject of alchemy, I'm going to get Brian and project these. It consists of 10 pictures, and they were part of an alchemical codex which Jung thought very highly of, and I think it was Marie-Louise von Franz, my Austro-Hungarian countrywoman. She was the daughter over Austro-Hungarian general. World War I. Marie-Louise von France was very good at alchemy, and she discovered this particular codex, which is called the Rosarium Philosophorum in Latin. Why Rosarium? Rosarium is a rosary. Because the rosary consists of 10 beads. Every division of it consists of 10 beads. Now, if you're a Calvinist or some other low life, then you're not going to don't know that. But otherwise, you might know that. So, in any event, yeah, right around the corner. Okay, so that's it. So, in any event, that is, for instance, because it's all 10 pictures, and it starts out with the duality, the two principles of alchemy, the king and the queen, or the sun and the moon, and all of that, and they are standing there, and they are sort of becoming acquainted. They are very lightly shaking hands. I often said, are they very afraid of getting too close to each other? Well, just wait. Anyway, then slowly begins their interaction. And they dance together, and they take a bath together, and they make love each other, although that is not, of course, put there pictorially, but it keeps on, and finally, there comes the point where they are ready to unite. And by unite is to become one. And the sun and the moon and the dark and the light are becoming one. And when they become one, then they become one being. And it is, you have seen perhaps in the old coats of arms of Austria, of Russia. Russia still has it now, the double-headed eagle. The eagle that has two heads. And that in turn is also an indication of the alchemical union that we are striving for. We all want to become double-headed eagle, in which the masculine and the feminine, the black and the white, or sometimes the red and the white, depending on which alchemical system you follow, where all of these are present and where they unite. And when they have united, by way of that union, they have united with the ultimate source of them all, with the one who has sent them here, the one who is in the Bible, in the New Testament, called the Father. It's a Father because it's the origin. You can say Father, or now with Mother's Day you can say Mother, but aren't our Father and our Mother, isn't that where we have come from physically? Well, of course. So if that is the case, then we are going back to where we come from spiritually. We are coming back, and now the question is, all right, but where was this creature? Where was this essence, as Madame Blavatsky calls it, that now may take over? Where was it? Well, no, that's a much bigger question than I can answer. But let's say it appears to me, and I think there are references to it, but they are just references. They are not outright statements in the secret doctrine, that there is an invisible essence, an invisible kernel, a little invisible thing that is inside of us. And when it is brought into the right transformational condition, various other things, when it has been nourished, when it has been helped to a level of transformational development, then it begins to move. Now, don't believe me because I say it, because I'm kooky anyway, and besides that, it's still a metaphor, but there is something tiny, absolutely tiny, so little that you would need 10,000 microscopes to see it. And that something is the essence. The essence. And when that essence is stimulated, is fed, is given various enticements, then it can come forth, and then it will take over. Then it will guide you. Then it will become what the theosophists call, I think, rightly, because there are no really good words for that, the Atman, which is the Sanskrit word for the ultimate spirit. When the Atman begins to take over in the individual, then you have, the Hindus have a word for it. In fact, everybody knows it because of one Hindu politician by the name of Mohandas K. Gandhi, because he was a Mahatma, a great Atman, a great soul. So when that Atman begins to grow, when that Atman begins to take over, when the Atman becomes the ruling principle, then you're on your way. A Spanish friend of mine who appropriately lives in New England. I don't know why appropriately, but it just seemed to me that when he was a close personal friend of King Don Carlos, who has since then abdicated in favor of his son, Felipe, and he said, well, you have to understand in Spain with the king, our king is our Atman. So it's the supreme. Yeah? And I know that you like presidents better, except those whom you hate, which seems to go on now. But let's say that is not the important thing, is that there is a supreme essence that as yet is trying to come into its own. But if you are affinitized to it, if you work on it, if you have contact with it, one place where you can find manifestations of that Atman is in the Red Book of Jung. He encounters it all the time. It's always there, and he talks to it, and he tries to think how is it going to develop, and all that sort of thing. Because it is a magnificent thing, and that is why it also has its opposite, because that's how alchemy works. You have the dark and the white, you have the gold and the silver and so forth. And so obviously there will be, as St. Paul says, when using of the dark side, that's what he's struggling against, that we fight not against flesh and blood. That would be easy. He didn't say that part. We fight not against flesh and blood, but against angels and archangels and demons and spiritual wickedness in high places. So to see the opposition to the development of this this essence within us is also there, and it must be taken into account. And that is one thing I tell you, and a great theosophical seer, Dora Kunz, told me when the two of us were only alone, she says, don't think and talk about evil, not more than necessary, because every time you name it, it wants to take over. In other words, it says, oh, you talked about, you called me, but she didn't use that mockery, but I do, so that all of these entities have their own way of being, and they want to be powerful, and they want to come forward and take over as much of our life, and so you have to watch out for them. But on the whole, if you pay attention, and it can be done. If I was able to do it, at least to some extent, other people are able to do it. It's not that big a deal. Just be in touch with that which is the best, the most compassionate. That's where the Buddhists come in, the nicest inside of you. And if you keep on hammering on that door and say, hey buddy, where are you? Where are you? Come on, yes, I'm here. And in so doing, you will really undergo the transformation. Now, another time I will, another time I will come to the controversial and I think an egregiously misunderstood concept of the masters, which is, of course, was very much part of the theosophical revelation and of Blavatsky, and try to see how we can fit that into this scheme. Because obviously we have both inside of ourselves, around ourselves, we have some helpers. We are deserving of help. You see, sometimes I feel like a motherless child. We all do. And why is that? No, Mother's Day is something to think about it. Sometimes we do because we are bereft. We are left alone. We are deserving and asking for help. And if we find such help, that is a great big thing, and that really, when you find help, you really have help. and that is the guru concept of the East. It is a concept of various spiritual masters. Now, the way it was brought forth and the way it has been corrupted by, what was the stupid expression that somebody came up with? Well, they always come up with stupid expressions. But, what kind of masters they said? The ascended masters. And I often wondered, well, now if we have ascended masters, how about doing a little feminist trip here? And how about proclaiming descending mistresses? And a lot of people whom I know laughed about it, and others just looked more grim. But that's their privilege. Something like that. But the issue is here that also has an esoteric background. But it is not what it has been made into. And with all the respect and love and reverence that I have for people like Dr. Annie Besant and like C.W. Leadbeater, I'm afraid they went a little bit too far. with these things. And instead of seeing them from a more transcendentally profound angle, they made, as somebody said, the trouble with masters is that masters need slaves. Oh, go down to Alabama that is what the slaves called their owners, masters. But of course you've got to remember that the 19th century theosophical term of masters, which really developed out of several terms, but there too, that came about largely, you know why? Because of the British educational system. The British head of a school is a schoolmaster, is a master. So what Blavatsky meant was these are our teachers. These are people who can guide us and instruct us. And when interpreted that way, then it becomes an entirely different matter. Because, as I say, I was pretty taken away by the master concept initially, because so many human jackasses had championed it. Not so much in the Theosophical Society, but elsewhere, you know. The great I am, and this, that, and the other thing. That's all master business. I thought, how about becoming your own master? How about mastering life, you know? But of course that didn't work. However, let's say there is a residue of veracity in that also. And I'm no longer saying that there are no such things, if indeed they can be called things. There are, but it's a very complex and a very subtle matter, and one where we have to watch our own psychology, our own ego, our own egotism closely, because otherwise we are too anxious to masquerade as our own masters. And that's no good. That's not the way it is. It's like God. God is inside of us, but God is also outside of us. And unless we manage this duality, then we have really very bad contact with the divine. So that is something that we maybe will address ourselves next time. But what I'm trying to, this was sort of a vision that came to me a short time ago, that there's something infinitesimally small, so small that is no magnifying instrument that can find it. And that infinitely small thing is the true self, it's the ultimate self. And if you pay attention to it, if you nourish it with your spirit and so forth, then that tiny little thing will grow bigger and bigger and will take you into its own kingdom where it originated, and where the father and the mother still await you, as they have awaited you for thousands and thousands of years. And what a reunion it will be. How marvelous it will be when the true father and the true mother will come and say, yes, in our house there are many mansions coming here. It will happen. I tell you with every fiber of my being it will happen, but we do have to work on it, we do have to pay attention to it, and we have to have hope, you know, hope, faith, and charity. If we don't hope for that day when this ineffable greatness encloses it in its eye. If we don't hope for that day, then that day will never come. But fortunately, we'll have hope, and that hope will guide us to where we ought to be, and then all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And if you are thus inclined, then we'll go further with this, with the master business and the other things. Next Friday, and I'm so glad that you could come, and I'm very glad every time you can come. Why? Because in each and every one of us here, there is that seed, the tiny little thing, that marvel, which will grow into its own and which will take us home. And the way we can talk to each other, the way we can realize that is the true compassion. You know, there's a lot of talk about compassion. And I used to get tired of my Buddhist friends. Compassion, compassion, compassion. Well, all right, so what is that? But since it is almost full moon, we are going to do a little Buddhist work here as well, but not tonight. But, you know, the issue with compassion, probably you have to learn languages, folks. You have to understand what you are saying. Compassio means suffering along with. That's what it is. Okay, my friend, if you want to suffer, go right ahead. I kind of feel that I've done enough of it, and I'm doing more of it now at the age of 93. But in live to be 93, doing what comes naturally. So, we're talking about something else. This is the passion of enlightenment that we share with each other. We all want to be there. We all want to be Buddhas. We all want to go home. And you know what? If we keep it in mind and we work at it, we will. Thank you.